Hey guys, welcome back to Boots and Bounty Homestead. We are doing another week of the Pantry Challenge that is hosted by Jessica at Three Rivers Homestead. And I want to show you a few new things that I made these past few weeks. I don't always show you videos I've done for that exact week, but I put together videos that are kind of similar. That way you can kind of see how they transition together. So let me show you this week what we have been doing. So for this first one, I wanted to show you first of all the cutting board that Emma made me in shop. And she put together these various types of woods and made this last year for me, and I love it. So the first meal that we are going to make, I'm going to start off with heating up the cast iron skillet. And I'm going to decide here to use some baking grease instead of my homemade lard, just to add a bit of flavor. And I'm going to be browning the deer meat that we processed ourselves. That is just going to add the extra bit of flavor. This deer meat is some deer that Emma actually killed last year, and I've got about 4 or 5 rolls that I'm trying to finish up these last few weeks, since we just finished up processing all the deer that she killed for this year. I've learned throughout my cooking experience these last few years that an apron is really needed, because I tend to mess up all of my good tops and my good dresses, and they end up having splatter stains on them. So I have learned to remind myself to put on an apron. So at the Pantry Challenge, we're going through my cabinet here, and I found some onion soup mix that I'm going to use in this recipe. And I just love the smell of onion soup mix. But we're going to add this to the meat here in just a little bit. My oldest son Preston got me this Casserole air fryer, and it is by far my favorite. I have another one that I never use, so that one is actually going up to the river so my parents can use it at the cabin. And I'm just going to make some steak fries out of potatoes. Emma's going to come in and help me keep the meat going while I get the potatoes cut up for the french fries. You want to cut these evenly so they cook evenly, and then put them into a bowl with some oil and then your favorite type of seasonings, and then just give them a toss. I went ahead and cooked the 2 pounds of hamburger meat or deer meat, and I started off with 1 package of onion soup mix and decided to go ahead and use another one, just because it was so much meat and I wanted to get that rich flavor. So we're just mixing in the 2 pounds of meat with 2 packages of onion soup mix. So here we are, we're adding the fries to the air fryer that has preheated. And then we're just going to set it to 400 degrees for 15 minutes. We're going to preheat the oven at 350 and get out the casserole dish. Shake the fries halfway just to get them even brown. And then just take them out, remove them when they're done, and start the next batch. I'm going to spray the casserole dish just because we're using the crescent sheets and I don't want them to stick. Eventually I will learn how to make my own crescent sheets, but until then we're using store-bought. And when you get the crescent rolls started, you kind of slightly want to pull them open if you're using a bigger casserole dish, which I would recommend because it fits the crescent rolls a lot better. So you just unroll this one down, and then we are going to fill the bottom with the meat and onion soup mix. You can put as much or as little as you want. We do like it to be a little bit of a thicker meat casserole dish. So I'm going to use almost all of it, and then I'm actually going to leave a little bit of meat to use in another dish I'm going to do for another day. Once you get the meat all layered out, then you can just add your toppings. Now, spoiler alert, this is a Krystal Burger Casserole. So we are going to add sliced cheese, and I'm going to make sure I get all of it covered, and the edges I need to just break some pieces in half. And what we add to ours, you can add ketchup, you can add mustard, you can add pickles, whatever your favorite toppings are that you like on your burgers. I didn't have any mustard, so I'm just sprinkling some dry mustard on 1/2 because Logan and Steven do not like mustard. Now with the dill pickles here, these are homemade. They were in a refrigerator. I need to get them used up. But I'm placing them just enough apart to where I can cut between them, and each burger will have one pickle on it. I'm going to add ketchup on all of it, not too terribly much so it doesn't make the crescent rolls soggy, but just enough to taste. There it is. And there's the crescent dough sheets. I like to use the sheets instead of the rolls because it doesn't have the triangles that are pre-cut. So again, I'm pulling slightly on it to stretch it to go all the way across. Unroll it, get that edge tucked down in there. And there's your Krystal Burger Casserole. In the meantime, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of garlic powder on the top. So this will go in the oven until golden brown. Takes about 10 to 15 minutes. I had a phone call, sorry. Trying to cook and talk at the same time. And there she is, all done, golden brown. So we're doing Krystal Burger Casserole and steak fries tonight. We'll get those cut. And I didn't show you close up, but the crescent roll kind of forms around the pickles so you can kind of see them and know where to cut. You can see the indentation through the crust. And so I just cut around it. These made 20 little mini burgers. And first one's always the hardest to get out, right? So we got these all plated up. And I gave everybody 2 to begin with. If they wanted more, they can come back and get it. And then just added the fries as a side. In the pot on the back, if you were wondering, I was cooking down some ketchup because the batch that I made last year was watery. And so I needed to cook that extra water out. So it's sitting back there cooking down. But there's our meal for tonight. Krystal Burger Casserole and fries. Now, I needed to go ahead and refill some more of my cream of something soup. And in this, for 1 can, you add 1/3 cup of the dry mix to 1 1/4 cup of water. And in a pot, you just bring it to a boil and it thickens up. So I just needed to refill my canister for some upcoming meals. Here's the recipe if you want to screenshot it. The only thing I did not have with making this one was some thyme. I did buy it at a later date and then go back and just mix it in, so you don't see me adding the thyme in the video here. But we're just adding all the ingredients together. As you're mixing the powder together, just make sure that you use the utensil or whatever you're using. Smash the little clumps up against the side of the bowl to make a smooth and creamy mixture. And then just refill the container that you are going to keep your powder in. You can go ahead and give it a little shake just to go ahead and pre-mix everything again with anything that was left in the jar previously. That way it'll mix it thoroughly. And then we're going to use this at a later time for another recipe. I do like to leave the measuring cup inside the container because I know that is the recipe for it. So I just leave it in there. Now for the next 2 recipes, you are going to see me use up some things that I've had sitting around. One is cabbage and one is broccoli. But these are just 2 recipes that I made on the same night because the kids don't like cabbage soup and they love broccoli soup. So I did have those 2 ingredients I need to go ahead and use up. That's why on the same night you're going to see 2 separate recipes. The pot I'm using, I need to go ahead and preheat because I have to put a little bit of oil in the bottom of it before I put the meat in it. You kind of treat it like a cast iron skillet, but it has a really thick bottom in it that I love to use to cook these long-term soups, and I also love to make my jams and jellies in it. So while I'm waiting for the pot to preheat before I put my meat in it, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting up the cabbage. Save that part for the chickens. And for the cabbage, I do like to cut them in little strips just because we don't like the big full chunks of leaf in it as we're eating the soup. So once the pot gets reheated, I go ahead and put the meat in it. I'm saving that second half for another recipe that I'll do in the next video. To the meat, you can either go ahead and saute your onions with it, or you can just use some dehydrated, diced, or minced onions. And then I like to add a little bit of oregano. I grew this last year and dried it, and then as I use it, I just crumble it up in my hands. And then as you cook your meat down, you just go ahead and mix those seasonings in with the meat. I'm also going to add in some minced garlic, but that is towards the end so it doesn't burn. This is just the last minute or 2 that I'm cooking the meat. Then we're going to add in all of the cut up shredded cabbage into the meat so it can reduce down. Yes, it does look like a lot, but you'll see here in a minute it does cook down quite a bit, as any leafy vegetable does. And this is just going to start absorbing those flavors that are in the meat for just a few minutes. Now, in choosing what type of soup you want to make, you can either do a broth-based soup or you can do a tomato-based soup. We tried both of them in the last video where I showed you guys how to can this, and we actually prefer the tomato juice-based soup. Now to this I am adding in 2 quarts of tomato juice. But as I start stirring it up, I see I needed to add just a little bit more. So all I did was added a little water. That is going to thin out the soup just a little bit, because this is going to cook down for a few hours and I don't want it to run out of moisture in the soup and become a paste. So I just add that in, stir it up, and let it cook on the stove for a few hours. Here's what that looks like, and I did leave the cover on it so the liquid did not evaporate. But you see the cabbage cooked down a whole lot. So at supper time, after the cabbage soup is already done, broccoli soup is really quick to make. So I'm just adding about a half a gallon of water to a pot, and I've already pre-cut up a couple of broccoli heads previously and put them in a bag. So I'm adding that to the water to go ahead and start boiling the broccoli for the broccoli soup. Add a little bit of salt to taste. And after about 5 minutes or so, I test the broccoli, some of the bigger florets. I use my spoon there to stick it in the middle and make sure they're done, because I don't like them crispy. So I had this thought to make some of my homemade Jiffy mix and use the broccoli water to make like a broccoli cornbread to go along with the soup. So I strained the water into a bowl, and the kids sounded like they were just so disgusted by me making this broccoli cornbread with that broccoli water, I decided not to even do it. But I did leave a couple of cups of water in the broccoli, and here you're going to see me add the equivalent of 2 cans of this soup. So it's 2 of those 1/3 cups that I've got in there. I'm just going to add it straight to the broccoli soup in that water, and that is going to start thickening up as it cooks just a little bit. So we're just going to mix it into that water. The more you stir it, the more it's going to break down. You can actually use a whisk if you want. You can take some of the water out and add it to that water and then pour it back into the pot if you want. But I just like to leave it in there. And then we added a little bit of heavy whipping cream because we like a creamy base. I'm going to use the immersion blender here to take out any of those big florets that hasn't broken down as I stirred it, because the kids don't like the big chunks of broccoli. They like more of the creamy soup. So I'm just using the immersion blender to stir it around and get some of those out, and I'm only pulsing when I see one. And I add smoked paprika into the end of it. And there is the cabbage soup all served up. Okay, so the next thing you're going to see me make is something new that my sister sent to me from one of those little TikTok videos. And my sister and I, we have been kind of looking for some sugar-free desserts that we might could enjoy on just a sporadic basis. And this is one thing that I wanted to try with you guys. So you'll see me making this for the very first time. It's super quick. I'm just going to run through it real quick. It is like I said, a sugar-free. It actually only has 1 gram of sugar in it, but you can actually make it sugar-free depending on the ingredients that you decide to put in it. There is a ton of different combinations that you can make for this, but I just wanted to show you real quick how to make it and what to use to make it and then you can make your choice on what you want to use as your ingredients or as your flavors to put this together. This is a really neat trick, so let's watch real quick. Get in a bowl. You're going to put in some kind of protein shake, heavy whipping cream, and sugar-free Jell-O mix. So protein shakes of this size usually are 1.5 cups, and all I wanted to do is make a regular pudding recipe, so I'm topping it off with heavy whipping cream. We're going to put that in a bowl, and that box of Jell-O is sugar-free, and it's the instant kind. And what you're going to do is simply put these in a bowl, use an immersion blender for about 20 seconds, mixing it all together. And you're just going to pop it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. And that's what it looks like, guys. So what I used was the coffee Atkins protein shake and vanilla pudding mix, and it was divine. So now a little bit of variation you can do with the pudding. You could sit there and eat the whole bowl if you wanted to, and it would be the equivalent of all the nutritional facts for the ingredients that you put in. But the whole bowl has 30 grams of protein, has 1 gram of sugar, but it's so rich it would probably make you sick to your stomach if you actually ate the whole bowl. But it is a good substitute instead of eating some big dessert or a big cake or ice cream or anything like that. It's a good substitute for making it just as a little sweet snack, and it doesn't matter what size of serving really that you consume. You can, make a big bowl, or you can just take a couple of bites. Now, in the TikTok video that she sent me, the girl was saying that you could use just 2 tablespoons of the instant pudding with a whole protein shake and immersion blend it for 10 seconds. What I did was I just made a regular pudding recipe that calls for 2 cups of cold milk, and it doesn't have to be cold for the shake. The shake can be room temperature. It works. That's what I used, was just room temperature. And I topped off the 2 cups of milk that the pudding recipe called for, and just topped it off with a heavy whipping cream, making the 2 cups of milk. I went ahead and immersed mine for the 20 seconds because I used a whole pack of the pudding mix and the whole pack for the shake, making the 2 cups. With hers, she did like half a recipe, and she only did it for 10 seconds. Doing it the way I just showed you, it come out perfectly, and it was fabulous. You can buy different flavored shakes. You can buy different flavored puddings. You can do it with the cheesecake pudding, chocolate pudding. You can do vanilla shake, coffee shake, caramel shake. You can do whatever you want to, and have different desserts that you could have readily available on hand. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's of Pantry Meals from the Homestead. Gives you some ideas of some things to be making in your kitchen. Let me know below what you've been cooking up this week. I need some new ideas. So guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Bye.